Matt, you must be in a good mood today because both of our teams had a great trade deadline and NFL training camps underway, and
Hmm.
we are ready for when we get what you call this football training camp to start.
That is true. And for those of you who didn't look at my socials, I'm letting you know I went to the New York Yankees Toronto Blue Jays game on Sunday. I saw Eli Manning throw out the first pitch. My childhood quarterback, basically. It was a great game. Yankees won that game despite a rain delay in 10 innings. It was a good day on Sunday, and I gotta thank my friends from Staten Island for giving me the ticket.
Well, yeah, we got to start talking about the Yankees. I mean, we've talked about off air that we both think Juan Soto is going to remain a Yankee because the Yankees moved off some dead weight in getting Jazz Chisholm to the Bronx, and then they
Yeah.
also got Leiter Jr. I think those were really good trades for the Yankees, and it basically saved their season.
Yeah, and I mentioned this off air. I said that you can imagine that in the offseason, the Yankees are going to cut a lot of dead weight. Rizzo, Glaber, they already got rid of J.D. Davis, which was a waste. They are going to get rid of, well, you can't get rid of Mayhew because in real life he's got 2 years left on his contract. But you're going to get rid of maybe guys like who are holding the fort down and aren't doing anything. So like maybe Jose Trevino. I know the Yankees like having two catchers, but I don't think he's really going to bounce back to where he was in 2022. You also have guys like you just have a lot of guys that aren't really being used anymore. And I think that space is going to be saved for Juan Soto. And when you get rid of their contracts, that'll make room for the Yankees to use their money towards paying one of their top two stars. And that has to be priority number one. Because if you lose Juan Soto, that's a problem. And I don't think I mentioned this aspect of it. Remember 2 years ago when Aaron Judge was on a 1-year prove-it deal in 2022?
Yes.
That's what they're doing with Juan Soto. They only got him for the year because they wanted to see how beneficial this guy could be. And the answer to that has been very beneficial. So Juan Soto's going to earn his money. I'm predicting it's going to be like a 10-year, $450 million contract because he's earned that money, and the Yankees would be nowhere without him. It'd be the Aaron Judge show, and you can't really count on him all the time.
You're right. You can't do that. And, I think, the Yankees also did that. And then you also think, and we also talk about the Dodgers. I mean, they had a really good trade deadline because they got Kevin Kiermaier from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
But the big acquisition they got was Michael Kopech and Jack Flaherty. I love those acquisitions because Michael Kopech was a one-time starter that was but now a reliever that I think is going to make a lot of noise for the Dodgers, I think, down the stretch and into the postseason. I feel really good about that. And then Jack Flaherty really fits the bill what we're looking for in a rotation, not only down the stretch, but into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I think the Flaherty acquisition I think was really smart because the Dodgers rotation has taken some bumps with injuries along the way. I mean, Yamamoto got injured this year. Clayton Kershaw missed most of the year, so you don't know how they're going to be when it gets to the postseason. I mean, the Dodgers are going to win the NL West anyway, so they got to prepare for the postseason and just tune up for it. But I think the Flaherty acquisition is interesting because the Dodgers need depth at their rotation for the postseason, and I think Flaherty provides that. I mean, I think it kind of is a blow that no one got Garrett Crochet, but Crochet kind of hurt himself in the process by saying he wants the extension as soon as he would get traded. But back to the Dodgers for a second. I think that they really understood what the message was for the deadline. I think that there were other teams that did better, and I'll get into that in a second, but I think the Dodgers did what they had to do. It was to build depth and get more talented on all positions.
They did it without having to give up their top two prospects in the farm system or without having to mortgage it, which I think I applaud Andrew Friedman for it. And I just felt like that those depth moves are going to benefit them come playoff time in October.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, like I said, if you're the Dodgers, you need to focus on tuning up for the playoffs. And I think that's what their mindset is because they're going to win the division. And I think once they get to the playoffs, if they made the right moves and they play their cards right, they'll be good.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And we also have to talk about another one that we should talk about, Randy Arozarena going to the Seattle Mariners. Talk about a healthy Julio Rodriguez that's going to really make the Seattle Mariners more dynamic and explosive, both offensively and in the outfield.
So one of the things I mentioned not too long ago was there was a team that did better than the Dodgers at the deadline, and that was Seattle. And why did Seattle do better at the deadline? They improved their hitting. Not only did they get Randy Arozarena, they got Justin Turner as well. So they really upgraded their hitting, which they needed to do. But on top of that, they also upgraded their pitching. But Randy Arozarena, this is a guy who can give you a spark. And like you said, once Julio Rodriguez gets healthy, I think that this Mariners team is going to be a threat in the postseason. Now, the AL West is not good this year, so they're going to get the 3 seed, whoever comes out of that division. But I think it's Seattle, because I know we talked about the Astros, don't count them out. The Astros haven't been playing lights out lately. They haven't. But Seattle, if they pitch the way they've been pitching and they score at least 4 runs a game, that will give them the edge to beat Houston in the division race. But I like Randy Arozarena a lot. That's the spark that the Mariners needed big time.
Yeah, they needed that because their offense has been so lackluster. But you know what? If Randy Arozarena has a bounce back year next year, I think the Seattle Mariners offense is going to be really, really scary.
Yeah, and I want to know what your thoughts are about your boy Justin Turner joining the squad as well.
His veteran presence, I think, is going to help this young Mariners team. I think he'll be a good mentor to these younger guys on the Mariners, but I'm going to see the Mariners play the Dodgers on the 19th, so it'll be weird for me seeing him get an at-bat in a Mariners uniform.
Yeah, listen, like I said before, Seattle is scary if they make the postseason, because in the postseason, it's all about pitching. Whoever pitches their way through jams, whoever pitches their way to win games, that's the team that does well. And Seattle has the mold. They just needed to fix their offense a little bit. And like I said, Justin Turner, Randy Arozarena, those are 2 guys who have been there before. They've been in the playoffs before. They've won pennants before. Justin Turner's a former world champion, like you mentioned. So it's really going to be a recipe for success in Seattle. And I hope they win the division. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be tough between them and the Houston Astros, but we got to talk about the Padres here. I mean, they gave up a lot for Tanner Scott. I'm like, that's a team that's not very smart, because they give up way too much for a player that you don't really need to give up, because, AJ Preller is just the biggest fraud I know, because AJ Preller is just all ego with this Padres roster, and it's not doing them any good.
And this is the same guy who traded a boatload to get Juan Soto from the Nationals. This is not really the smartest way to go about handling business. And they got a lot in return for Juan Soto when he came to New York, but at the same time, you look at the pieces that the Padres have right now. I mean, they're in playoff position right now, which is good for them. But long term, this team has a lot of problems because they gave up a lot of prospects. They've given up a lot of talent. And the team they have right now is good, but I don't see this team making another 2022 run to the NLCS. I mean, this is just a team that is kind of overwhelmingly overrated. I think that giving away prospects, like, you need to have prospects for long-term success, prospects that you can develop. We're big NFL fans. Think of it this way: if you don't have draft picks, how can you build for the future? That's what prospects are in Major League Baseball. So the fact that the Padres are just selling their farm to win now, I feel like it's going to hurt them long term.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is going to hurt them long term, just because, they gave up a lot to get Dylan Cease. And I have a feeling that the Padres are going to do some stupid move that is going to require a team to get a boatload of prospects. Like, I'll give you an example. The Padres could be interested in Yandy Diaz and Shane McClanahan. And you know what the Rays are going to ask? A bunch
Everything
of their
in the
prospects.
kitchen sink. They're going to ask for everything in the kitchen sink. That's what they're going to ask for.
And would AJ Preller want to do that? Of course he would, just to be relevant. But that doesn't make the roster look really good for the Padres.
No, it doesn't. And like you said, I mean, the McClanahan thing is probably more realistic just because the Rays have given up. So, and I don't think they're going anywhere in the future. So if they get rid of McClanahan, he goes to San Diego. That's going to be something that's going to entice AJ Preller to say, you know what, I want this guy on my team because I want my team to be relevant now. But that's not what it's about. You need to have sustainability throughout.
They're not like my Dodgers, because the Dodgers have sustained success because they always retain a lot of their top prospects to build for the future.
Yeah, and that's what every general manager needs to do. I mean, as much crap as I give Brian Cashman, at least one of the things he knows is to keep his farm system stable. And there are some general managers that just don't do that.
It was stable during the Derek Jeter era. I'll give you that example, because when Derek Jeter was a Yankee, Brian Cashman always kept his farm system afloat.
Yeah, and that's smart. No, unfortunately, there are some general managers that just don't understand sustainability anymore.
The GM that understands it, I just think AJ Preller doesn't understand sustainability.
Yeah, and I think that long term that's going to kill him. And that's going to kill the Padres. I mean, like I said, you can make the playoffs as a 5 seed in the National League as many times as you want, but if you don't win in the playoffs, or if you look really bad in the future, that's on you. That's not on anyone else.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at who the Padres got in the Soto deal. They got Michael King. They got Johnny Brito. I don't know. They haven't turned out pretty good.
Yeah, they got Michael King as well. I haven't really heard a peep from him either. I mean, he starts some games, but I heard he's mediocre. So yeah, they got Higashioka as well. So it's kind of like, okay, the Yankees might have gotten the better half of this. I mean, look at how Juan Soto's playing in New York right now. So you look at Higashioka, you look at King, you look at, all these guys that they got from New York, and you're thinking to yourself, what did they really do to improve themselves in San Diego? And the answer is not much.
Yeah. They're a third place team at least, if you look at their roster right now, just because the Padres, yeah, they swept the Dodgers in a 2-game series, and they won the season series over the Dodgers. That's great for them. It's their World Series.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's their World Series, and they think they're going to leapfrog the Dodgers in the playoffs. That doesn't mean anything for the Dodgers if they get swept by the Padres. The Dodgers have a decade of dominance against those guys.
And the difference between that 2022 team that beat the Dodgers in the postseason and this team is that the star power is just not there. They have a lot of good guys. I mean, yeah, they still have Fernando Tatis Jr., but they don't have a lot of difference makers on that roster this year in San Diego. And if the season were to end right now, they'd be playing, I think, the Diamondbacks in the wild card round. So
the Mets, who've been playing great since that grimace came and gave them luck.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the thing. Right now, the Padres are in the wild card spot right now. They're playing Arizona. The Mets are a game and a half out of the wild card. But right now, sticking to the Padres for a second, you need to focus on, winning this year now. Because now there's no other choice. Now you have to win now. Because if you win the World Series, which I don't think they're going to, I think there are 5 or 7 other teams that are better than the Padres right now. You need to focus on winning now with what you got. And if you don't, watch what happens in the future.
Yeah, they're probably gonna be like the 2016, 2017 Padres, where they're gonna lose 100 games again before you know it.
Possibly.
But I think that I just didn't think the Padres were really the big winners at the trade deadline.
No.
So I think the biggest loser at the trade deadline, I think, is both the Chicago White Sox and the Angels. I'll start with the White Sox first. They're being too greedy with what they want if Luis Robert were to be traded. Unfortunately, the Chicago White Sox are going to be stuck with Luis Robert.
Yeah, they're stuck with him. And then also, it was the fact that Garrett Crochet hurt himself by basically saying, if I get traded, I want an extension. That doesn't make you look good at all. So there was that problem. And then, I mean, they got rid of Eloy Jimenez, which was good, but they got nothing in return for him. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, Eloy Jimenez, I think, will make the Baltimore Orioles look good when he's healthy. Eloy Jimenez is finally on a team that he can compete with at year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, good for Eloy Jimenez, but my concern right now is with the Chicago White Sox. I have a bunch of losers. It's not just the White Sox. It's also the Tampa Bay Rays are also another loser for me at the deadline. I mean, they basically gave up their best players. They gave up Zach Eflin as well as Randy Rosarena. So apparently, I remember the last show that we did, I thought that Pete Fairbanks was going to New York, but apparently that trade didn't go through on time. So Pete Fairbanks is staying in Tampa, but even then, you still got to look at this Rays roster and say they significantly downgraded from last year, where they started off 13-0. And they just don't scare me. Another loser that I have at the deadline is the Toronto Blue Jays. They basically traded half their team away. So that's another loser for me. The Oakland A's also lost because they gave up one of their starters to the Mets, and Mr. Blackburn, he gave up, and he started off pretty good in his Mets tenure. And then there's also who else lost for me? I think it was those 3 or 4 organizations. The Angels are another loser. That's a good point, but I'd like to hear your Angels point.
Yeah, with the Angels, I mean, they were trying to find trade partners for Luis Rengifo and Taylor Ward, but they traded Carlos Estevez. I'm not sure if they got good enough value in return, but I just felt like Artie Moreno did Artie Moreno things.
Yeah, and Artie Moreno also has more problems. The fact that Mike Trout basically is done for the season now, and the fact that you're trying to trade to be relevant and you're getting bags of chips for relevant players, and you're not hustling to get deals done. I think that just shows that Artie Moreno was really lackadaisical throughout this deadline and didn't really do anything to improve the team. And now they're just kind of stuck in a rut again with Mike Trout on the shelf.
This feels like 21 for the Braves. They have Eddie Rosario back. They just got Jorge Soler back. I think knowing that Ronald Acuna Jr. is out for the year and most likely he'll be back next year, I think Jorge Soler is a decent addition for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, although he can't DH every day because that's to Marcell Ozuna, Jorge Soler can play the field, play left field at times, which I think is good. And I think he has a decent glove in left field than in center field, though.
So the Braves did work hard at this deadline. They wanted to stack up on depth, knowing that Acuna Jr. was not going to be there. And it does feel like 2021 because this was almost the same roster that won the World Series without Ronald Acuna Jr. But this Braves roster is not as explosive as it was in 2021, even without Ronald Acuna Jr. And I still believe that Atlanta has a lot of work to do, knowing that they're going to be a top wild card to Philadelphia, winning the division in the NL East. But the Braves are showing that they're not going to go quietly.
Yeah, they're not. And then Ozzy Albies is out for a little while, and he should be back at the end of this month. And I think, I'm kind of thinking here, when Acuna comes back and when you get Michael Harris back,
yeah,
the Braves are going to be a great team when you get Acuna back. Because I think Jorge Soler is going to get a lot of starts in left field, Ronald Acuna Jr. in right, Michael Harris in center. And then you got to line up with Acuna, Olbies, Riley, Olsen, Osuna, Harris. And then you also talk about Soler in that feature in that lineup.
Right.
And I meant Soler and Murphy 7-8, and then Arcia 9. That's a stacked lineup for the Bravos.
It is a good lineup. I can't wait to see that applied in 2025 because the Braves have so much potential to do well. The only problem is they don't have a full team yet.
Yeah, they're cursed right now. And why I think the Giants are one of my losers is because they didn't find any trade partners for Matt Chapman. They just basically gave up Jorge Soler for nothing.
Yeah. Again, a bag of chips and written on a ripped up newspaper. That's what they gave up for Jorge Soler. That's pretty much what they gave up. But again, like the Giants didn't really do anything either. They kind of just let Jorge Soler walk and didn't find a partner for Matt Chapman. They also didn't find a partner for Logan Webb. I mean, that's basically it. They did nothing.
It's because the Giants front office believes that Logan Webb and Matt Chapman are long-term pieces for the Giants.
And maybe they could be, but I'm not confident in that because they're both up there in age. They've both been in the league for a long time. And the problem with the Giants is they're really just they're a middle of the pack team. They're not going to go anywhere. They're kind of just stuck with what they got. And they don't have a lot of other pieces to build around Chapman and Webb. That's the biggest issue that they have.
Yeah, let's look at what the Pirates did. I mean, they had some pretty good moves, like getting whatchamacallit, they got IKF. I don't think that's a move that you should be proud of just because there was more of a depth move for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, pretty much.
And for the Phillies, they had to give up Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto to the Orioles. But hey, they got Austin Hayes, who I think will give them some sustainability for a year or two.
I mean, Austin Hayes started off slow in his Phillies tenure, but I do think he's going to pick it up as he gets settled into Philadelphia. The Phillies, I'm shocked that they even wanted to trade. Like, you saw two contenders trade with each other, and I thought that was very interesting because you look at the Phillies; they have a stacked lineup right now before Austin Hayes. But I understand they need to find a trade partner. They wanted to at least swap out players for players that can match their system. And Austin Hayes is good, but I think the Orioles got the best of it. I'm going to be honest in that kind of deal.
It's also because the Phillies wanted to get a real closer in Carlos Estevez. That's why they traded away Gregory Soto.
Yeah, I thought that was a really smart move. Because the O's bullpen is kind of banged up, and they really don't have too many weapons in it. They don't have a lot of arms, so they wanted to basically say, okay, we know what's important in the playoffs. We want to contend this year. We know that in the playoffs we're going to be prepared this time. Because last year they got to the playoffs and they got wrecked by the Rangers. But now they're not playing around. They want to improve every weakness that they have. And that's why the O's, I think, were really smart.
Then we talk about the Astros. I mean, they were not really a loser, but they upgraded their rotation in getting Yusei Kikuchi. They are still they weren't messing around here because their rotation was hit with injuries, but they got a guy that I think is going to help them make a playoff push.
I mean, Yusei Kikuchi is not a bad starter, but we did talk about the Astros injuries at rotation. I mean, you basically lost 2 or 3 of your starters due to injury, and now you're playing with, at best, I think Christian Javier, I think, was your best starter that you have now before the trade deadline. And now Yusei Kikuchi, you add depth to the deadline, to the rotation. The only problem with the Astros is they got to worry about keeping pace with the Mariners, and they got a tough schedule ahead of them. But the thing that Yusei Kikuchi brings is that consistency. He doesn't give up a lot of runs. He's very solid. He struggles with the pitch clock from time to time, but I think that's really the only issue that he has.
Yeah, and then the Texas Rangers got Andrew Chafin. I think that's really good for their bullpen, though.
Yeah, it's a good bullpen move. The Rangers they crashed down to earth after winning the World Series last year. They really did crash down to earth. They're trying to stay relevant, but I feel like they needed to do more.
Did you think the Cubs were also a loser at the deadline too?
Yeah, the Cubs also kind of stayed put. They really didn't make any exciting moves. They kind of just really looked at what they had and was like, okay, I think we're fine with what we got. And the Cubs at one point, they were pretty good, but I think getting rid of Mark Leiter Jr. I thought really hurt them.
Yeah, it definitely hurt them in a sense, but I think that and then you also talk about the Cardinals too. They were part of this three-team deal that sent Tommy Edmonds to the Dodgers, but Eric Fetty is a consistent. He's had a great year this year.
Yeah, so the Cardinals were part of a 3-team deal. That's usually a good sign that you're at least being active. Um, the Cardinals are an interesting team too. I mean, they've kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit as far as the wild card spots are concerned, but I think the Cardinals, again, they're a team that is young and up and coming. They're far past the Albert Pujols days and the Adam Wainwright days. I think that they have a lot to do, and they do need to get back on track. But I do think that I do think they played their cards smart here by not making too many moves.
Yeah, and also with the the Yankees, you playing a doubleheader tomorrow with the Angels. I think for the Dodgers here, they beat the Phillies. Talk about uh, Freddie Freeman returning after
Yeah.
dealing with a personal issue with his son Max was dealing with a really bad condition.
Yeah, no, it was good to see Freddie return to the team and play baseball. And, the Phillies, they've kind of slumped a little bit. They've lost 5 of their last 6 series. And now the team that was once the best team in baseball by a wide margin, they're now struggling for their lives to at least stay relevant for the postseason because the Phillies going to be in the postseason. But the Dodgers, they got swept by the Phillies the last time around. So now this is kind of the revenge tour for them. And the fact that they even came in yesterday and basically said, you know what, we're not going to let this happen again. I thought that was really good for them and their morale. And the Dodgers, don't sleep on them yet. They're creeping up on that 1 seed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But now we got to talk about some football here. I mean, preseason starting, but Patriots take on the Panthers on Thursday. You know what? I'm kind of excited to see Drake May play out here on Thursday.
Yeah, it's good that you're going to see the rookie quarterback get some reps. I know people kind of crap on the preseason, but this is also a good preview to see what you can expect. And I know you've been high on Drake May. I think he's got a lot of potential. I just think that I need to see how he throws in the pocket, how he throws on play action, how he leads a team down the field. I need to see that leadership in a true game, in an exhibition game. And when the regular season comes around, that's going to be more of a test for him. But I think I want to see how he performs under pressure. And rookie quarterbacks typically do okay in preseason, but like I said, you need to get him some reps. That's what's important.
Yeah, and then you also talk about Brandon Ayuk. I mean, the Patriots, Browns, and Steelers are in on the star wideout. And you know what? I think I'm going to say the Patriots get Brandon Ayuk, but they don't give up 1 or 2 first-round picks for him. They just give up at least a second-round pick and a couple of assets to the Niners.
It's not going to really work. I think Brandon Ayuk's worth at least a first-round pick because this was the 49ers' leading receiver. I know Deebo Samuel gets a lot of the spotlight, but you got to look at what Brandon Ayuk has done as a receiver, and he's one of the underrated pass catchers that the NFL has, and one of the best underrated pass catchers in the NFC. And I know he could be a number 1 somewhere. He was basically the number 1 in San Francisco, and like I said, he's got a lot of talent. He can leap, he can run after the catch, he can do so many things for your football team. And I think that the Patriots, if they want to be in the spotlight as being a potential contender, I think they need to get Brandon Ayuk. But like I said, I think he costs a first-round pick and maybe even a second to go along with it.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that, just because I just don't want the Patriots to do what the Rams did to get Matthew Stafford.
No, I get that. I get that. I know it's a whole complicated thing. I mean, that's pretty much how the Rams operate now. They operate around Matt Stafford, but long term, they're not going to look good because even though they got their Super Bowl, they lost a lot of draft picks because of the trade. But for Brandon Ayuk, this is different. I mean, it's a receiver that could help a football team out and help your young quarterback out. And I think Jerron Mayo wants to focus on how can we prioritize our offense. If Brandon Ayuk wants to come to New England, I think you need to do what you need to do to get him. And like I said, I think a first-round draft pick, I think, is enough.
How many do you think? It's going to be just one or two?
One and a two. A 1 and a 2.
You mean one first-round pick and one second-round pick for Ayuk?
Yes.
For the 2025 draft.
Yeah, I think your first-round pick in 2025 and then a second-round pick in the 2025 draft.
And then you don't really mortgage your future for that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think I feel like that's the most you can give up for him. I think a first is the bare minimum you should give up for him. A first and a second is the highest you should give up for him.
So are you thinking the Patriots are the front runner for Brandon Ayuk, or do you think it's going to be the Browns?
I mean, the Browns are a nice spot too. Don't get me wrong, but they already have Amari Cooper. I mean, they got a pretty good receiving core in Cleveland. I think, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they got George Pickens already, so I don't think they really need him. I think New England's a good spot. I just want to see how aggressive Jerron Mayo and company can be.
Oh yeah, I think this is something worth monitoring. I mean, I gotta FaceTime you if that happens, but Brandon Ayuk. Even if the Niners trade Brandon Ayuk, I think the Niners, they're not going to fall off a cliff by a bit.
No, they got a lot of talent around them. They could afford to lose Brandon Ayuk. I just feel like Jawan Jennings would get more would get more touches at that point because Jawan Jennings is basically your third string receiver. He'd probably be the number 2 receiver behind Deebo Samuel. And then the Niners have a lot of depth offensively. They're going to be fine. But I think Brandon Ayuk is the heart and soul of that offensive passing core. So I feel like you need to keep him to at least be a top dog. But I think they're going to be good no matter what because they got a lot of talent.
Yeah, especially Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Deebo. That is good. That's a recipe for success for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, I 100% agree. But you can never have too many receivers. That's the main motto. You can never have too much of anything.
Yeah, and then the Niners are a team that I think they are close to getting that Lombardi trophy, but I think they can do it.
They can. They just need to get over the hump of the AFC. That's their biggest problem.
Because the AFC is pretty much the biggest. The AFC is so hard heavy, but even though McCaffrey is hurt, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. So the report came.
I just don't think they play him right now in preseason play.
Yeah. So Loro, what he just mentioned, I wanted to bring this up to the audience. Our report came in from the NFL basically saying Christian McCaffrey has a hurt calf and he will not play in the preseason, but Kyle Shanahan said he'll be fine by week 1. So that's the report. I think he's going to be fine. They're not going to play him in preseason. I think this is going to be the smart thing to do and the right thing to do because he's the best running back in football, and the last thing you want to do is rush him back. So unless there's a setback, I think that the 49ers are going to be okay at running back.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that. I mean, running back is a very stressful position. I mean, you get worn out easily. So Christian McCaffrey is by far one of the best running backs in all of football.
Absolutely. And he's their best playmaker by far. I mean, he had a massive year with the touchdowns last year. So I feel like if you need him, you're going to need to rest him as much as he needs. But like I said, from what I've heard, preseason is all he needs to rest. So that's good.
Well, and then we talk about the Patriots preseason schedule. 3 games here. They play the Panthers. We won't have a pick for that. And then they'll play the Eagles and then the Commanders on a Sunday night. I'm really excited to see Drake May play just because, I'm excited about him and, I can't wait to see what he's going to bring to the table. And, I think Jacoby Brissett is just doing what he can right now to keep the quarterback competition afloat. But I think Jacoby Brissett's the backup quarterback.
No, I think the reason why they're doing this is because they're trying to light a fire under Drake May's butt just to see if they can bring the best out of him, which I'm hearing that apparently he's been doing pretty good. I know he had a couple of setbacks a week ago, but apparently he's bounced back from that.
And then you talk about, I'm hearing that JJ McCarthy could be the week 1 starter for the Vikings. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, not too long ago we were talking about whether Sam Darnold is deserving to be the starter or not, and he's fallen off as far as like the projection of him being the starter. I think that this is a given. It really should be a given because JJ McCarthy is the best option you got at quarterback. I'm curious to see how he performs in preseason, just because I want to see how he adapts to the pro game. Because in Michigan, the star of the offense was the running game, but now he doesn't have that anymore. I mean, you have Aaron Jones as your running back, but now you got Justin Jefferson to throw to. I mean, this Viking team on paper looks really good, but I want to see how the rookie quarterback utilizes the weapons around him.
Well, and then you talk about the Denver Broncos. They've officially released their first unofficial depth chart with Derek Stidham as QB1, Zach Wilson QB2, Bo Nix QB3. Is this an overreaction?
It's an overreaction. I think people are not giving. I mean, Jarrett Stidham. I mean, come on now, come on. I mean, Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. We've seen that story before, and then Zach Wilson. That story's done. That book is closed. You got to go with Bo Nix. I mean, you got to go with the kid. I mean, a lot of the teams that drafted quarterback in the first round are probably going to utilize their rookie QBs, except for Atlanta. But that's a different story for a different day. But I think Bo Nix has the most talent of all the quarterbacks. I mean, like I said, Jarrett Stidham's washed, Zach Wilson's washed, Bo Nix is young and fresh. So, and the fact that you got one of his Oregon teammates at receiver, I think you got to utilize the kid.
It says right here on one of the top stories, it did say that Bo Nix is slowly pulling away in the Denver Broncos quarterback competition on the Sporting News website. But, when I get Madden 25 next week, I'm not wasting my time with Jarrett Stidham as the Broncos starting quarterback. With Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, I'm talking about them being one of the most improved teams in the NFL this year.
I mean, they improved a lot from 2022. I mean, last year they were 5-12, and they fired their head coach Nathaniel Hackett after 1 year, not even 1 year, like 14 games. So they definitely improved. They were on a 6-game winning streak at one point. Sean Payton really did bring the best out of the team. They just need the answer at quarterback, and it's just disappointing how Russell Wilson didn't pan out there. But I think that you have to turn the page. You got to give lead to the new generation.
Yeah, Sean Payton, I think, is going to do – he's the right coach for the Denver Broncos, but now that he has a quarterback he can work with in Bo Nix, it's going to make him look good again.
Yeah, and this is kind of similar to a Drew Brees kind of situation. I mean, Bo Nix looks like Drew Brees, the way he throws in the pocket. I mean, it's really uncanny. And I feel like that is the best thing for Sean Payton at head coach. So you have a Drew Brees caliber quarterback.
Yes, and you also talk about Franklin, the wide receiver, who I think is going to be sneaky good for the Denver Broncos.
And the Broncos have a good receiving core to begin with. I mean, they got a lot of talent up front. They got the 1-2 punch at running back. So I think that they got some really, really interesting pieces to use. I just want to see Bo Nix at the controls.
Absolutely. I mean, we predicted that all 5 rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in this year's class are going to be starters. I think that's already a foregone conclusion.
Well, Caleb Williams is going to be the starter in Chicago. That's a foregone conclusion. Jane Daniels has already been taking reps at the first team with the Commanders. That's a foregone conclusion. Third was, I think it was Drake May. Yeah. Drake May. The training camp starting to get interesting in New England. And then Bo Nix. I'm not even going to mention Michael Penix Jr. because we know how that situation is going to go. He'll wait a year or two before starting. And then, obviously, J.J. McCarthy. So it's all coming into play, as you would say.
Yeah, I think our predictions of those 5 rookie quarterbacks that we mentioned will come true.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the Giants. I mean, tell us, who do they have as their first preseason game? And, This is a lot. This is a season where it's under pressure for the G-men.
Well, the Giants preseason will begin on Thursday. They play the Detroit Lions at home against Detroit. And then their second preseason game will be against the Houston Texans in Houston. And then you have the MetLife Bowl where they play the New York Jets at the Meadowlands, or MetLife Stadium as they call it. So that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. That's the preseason. I want to see Jalen Hyatt and Malik Neighbors get a little bit of action. See some first team reps, particularly in the Jets game, because usually by the preseason finale, you get the first team reps coming in for all 32 teams just to get a little bit of a taste and a little bit of action before the regular season starts, which starts on September 5th with the Chiefs and Ravens. But again, I'm not expecting much for the Giants this year. The best thing for the Giants was the fact that this is their 100th season. And like I said, I saw Eli Manning throw in the first pitch of the Yankee game on Sunday. But as far as the Daniel Jones era is concerned, this is do or die.
Yeah, and I don't think Brian Dable's really on the hot seat just because, he doesn't have his own quarterback. A lot of rumors are swirling that Bill Belichick could return to the Giants next year, which I don't see happening. My pick for Bill Belichick on if he were to return as NFL head coach after this season, I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys because I just don't see a future in Mike McCarthy.
I mean, I can understand the Giants rumors because once upon a time, Bill Belichick was part of the Giants coaching staff when Bill Belichick was the defensive coordinator and Bill Parcells was the head coach. So I can kind of see the connection there. Bill Belichick coached Lawrence Taylor when he was defensive coordinator for New York back in the 80s. But I get the point. It's a different era now. The Dallas Cowboys make the most sense for Belichick. I just feel like I want to see how Mike McCarthy does this year as head coach because him and Mike and Robert Saleh are the two coaches this year that are on the hot seat because Brian Dable, I agree with you. I think doesn't have as much pressure as those two guys, but Brian Dable is not exactly looked at in a good view at this point because of the fact that the team does not look good. The fact that they won more games with Tommy DeVito than Daniel Jones, I think just puts a big old spotlight on Dable and how he's going to manage Daniel Jones going forward. But I don't think we're going to get the 2022 Daniel Jones where he only threw 5 interceptions in 2022. I feel like that's going to be a pipe dream for the Giants.
It's a long season for the Giants just because, Malik Neighbors is going to be the number one receiver, but I don't think Daniel Jones has enough weapons to throw the football to.
I mean, losing Saquon Barkley, I think, was a big blow to their offense, no doubt about it. I'm just really concerned about what happens when we play the Eagles twice a year. But the Giants need to look at the college scene this year and look at the running back prospects because the running back committee that they have is not good at all. And I feel like losing Saquon, like I said, it stunk. But again, you got to look at quarterbacks, you got to look at running backs. You have a lot to look at. But try to get through the season first and then try and see what you can do.
I feel like Giants fans are going to be very, very impatient all year long.
Oh, yeah. I'm already feeling the impatience.
Well, and then you also talk about other non-quarterbacks that we should be excited about in the preseason. For me, it starts with Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Cardinals. I cannot wait to see what he can bring. There's already excitement in Glendale, Arizona.
No, and like I said, I have the Cardinals finishing in second place in the NFC West. I mean, that was a take that shocked you, but I think that it's very possible. Me a lot.
I'm like, I don't think they're there yet because, Jonathan Gannon hasn't had a full year with Kyler Murray yet.
Yeah, but when Kyler Murray returned, he looked pretty good. He's going to look even better with Marvin Harrison Jr. And don't forget, you still have James Conner in the backfield. You have Trey McBride at tight end. You have a decent amount of weapons in Arizona. So I feel like you take that competitive spirit that they showed in every game last year, apply it to this year, and I think you'll be able to win the game. Like I said, I think the Cardinals can finish second place in their division. I don't have them going to the playoffs, but I do think that they're going to be really better than they were last year.
Jonathan Gannon, I think, is the right coach for the Arizona Cardinals because Michael Bidwell looked at it this way. He didn't think Cliff Kingsbury was a match made in heaven for the Cardinals just because the reason why Cliff Kingsbury got the job to begin with was assuming Kyler Murray was the Cardinals' #1 pick.
Yes, and the reason why Cliff Kingsbury didn't work out is because it's kind of similar to every college coach that comes to the NFL. Things work out in college, but then when you go to the pros, it's a different environment and so much stuff you have to manage that it all fell apart. I mean, the Cardinals did get a good year or two out of Cliff Kingsbury, but unfortunately, once the bottom fell out, they had to give way. And like I said, Jonathan Gannon, for a defensive coordinator, has shown that he could lead a team against top-tier teams. I mean, we saw him knock off the Eagles last year, late in the year.
He knocked off his buddy Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, exactly. So he knocked off the Eagles late in the regular season, and I feel like that gave the Cardinals a lot of confidence going forward heading into this year. I mean, like I said, they finished 5-12 last year. But you know what? For a 5-12 team, they looked better than that.
You're absolutely right. They did look better than a 5-12 team. But the Arizona Cardinals, to me, are going to be so exciting. Kyler Murray, I still think, is the guy. Jonathan Gannon said that Kyler Murray is the answer quarterback for the Cardinals when he asked about rumors about tanking and all that, because Jonathan Gannon, I think he has the Cardinals heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and I don't think that – I know Kyler Murray has had a lot of chances to showcase his talent, but – I feel like people need to understand the coaching in Arizona before Jonathan Gannon was not good. Cliff Kingsbury did not put the Cardinals in a good path. I feel like right now, Jonathan Gannon has got the Cardinals right where they need to be. And like I said, we saw this with Dan Campbell in 2022. The Lions were 3-13 or 3-14 in 2021. They improved to 9-8 the following year. I feel like with the Cardinals, they're 5-12 last year. I think they're going to be 10-7. I think that they're going to be a very good team. They're going to be a very exciting team. And sometimes you need rookie players to jolt an offense and jolt your team. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is the guy to do just that. They're going to double their win total this year. That's my bold prediction. They're going to double their win total, but not make the playoffs.
I mean, I could really see that. And I have to see what the Cardinals do. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is a non-quarterback that could really win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and there aren't a lot of non-quarterbacks that got drafted this year that we're really looking at. I mean, one of the things I can really tell you is that the veterans, like Breece Hall, I'm looking at him as potentially being a good Offensive Player of the Year candidate. We also got players like CeeDee Lamb and Dak, like CeeDee Lamb, who's asking for a contract extension. He hasn't gotten it yet. Dak's also looking for a contract extension in Dallas. We might jump into that in a little bit, but the non-quarterbacks, I'm looking at the Texans receiving core. Stephon Diggs in a new environment. We also got Joe Mixon in a new environment. We got T. Higgins, all the spotlights on him because he wasn't traded away by Cincinnati. So there's a lot of non-quarterbacks to look at this year, but I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the biggest one to look at because he's the most exciting receiving prospect since Randy Moss.
Yeah, he is like Randy Moss when it comes to that. But also, I want to get your thoughts on this last weekend, where where we saw a lot of new faces come into Canton. Devin Hester was well deserving of that just because he was one of the greatest special teamers in the history of the NFL. And Andre Johnson, in my early days watching the NFL with the Houston Texans, he was the man for the Houston Texans when it comes to the best wide receiver in town.
And the thing with Devin Hester, he wasn't just a good special teamer. He was exciting to watch. He returned kicks and punts like nobody's business. He was just so dynamic. And I think if you left him out of the Hall of Fame for another year, there would have been a riot in front of Canton, Ohio. I really think there would have been. And then Andre Johnson, Mr. Texan, one of the first major Texans players to really come out of the woodwork and make a name for himself on the NFL stage. I mean, I feel like he deserved it. I feel like he should have waited another year or two. I feel like there were other candidates that would have been better eligible. I forget the class off the top of my head that was eligible this year. But, it's good to have a Texan finally represented in Canton, Ohio, especially because they were the last team to come into the league.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, the Houston Texans with Andre Johnson back in those days, they didn't make it to the championship games during his time. But, Andre Johnson, the first Houston Texan Hall of Famer, was long overdue.
And you know what? He won't be the last.
Because there will be more Houston Texans Hall of Famers coming in, like J.J. Watt.
Well, J.J. Watt right off the bat is going to go in Canton.
Yes, because the Houston Texans now, we talked about how good they are now with DeMeco Ryans as their head coach. CJ, I love CJ Stroud. I mean, the best quarterback coming out of the Ohio State University. I mean, the Houston Texans could be a sneaky team for that one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, and it's refreshing to see CJ Stroud play this well because if you probably know better than I do, Ohio State quarterbacks don't do well in the NFL. And so seeing CJ Stroud take the league by storm and almost win MVP last year, I think was really refreshing.
He should be an MVP candidate this year.
Yeah, and like I said, I have him throwing 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. That's like a pipe dream, but again, you can only hope. And I think that the way the NFL is structured now, I feel like it's really tailor-made for CJ Stroud to throw for 6,000 yards.
And he's in a really tough conference too. I don't see the Texans going 9-8 to win the division. I think both the Jags and the Texans are going to get more than 9 wins this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a dogfight, but I feel like the bar is going to be like 11 or 12 wins for both these teams in the AFC South to do well. I mean, the AFC South is not one of the better divisions in the NFL, but I can also tell you that it's going to be way more competitive between those two teams this year than it has been in years past. And if you remember, the Jags and Texans 3 years ago were the laughingstock of the NFL.
They were, but let's talk about the Titans. Do you think that you and I have kind of we've been very harsh on the Tennessee Titans, but what they did this offseason made me think they won the offseason because they got Tony Pollard, they got Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. But the Tennessee Titans might be sneaky good this year.
I mean, here's the thing. I want the Titans to do well because, they got a lot of talented pieces, but I just don't think they're ready yet because I don't think Will Levis is ready to take the next step. I mean, he started half a season last year, and then this is going to be his first full season as a starter, and they're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for the first couple of weeks because he hurt his foot. So the Titans, they're going to be off to a slow start. Whether or not they actually succeed in the AFC South, I mean, that's going to be hard because like we hyped up the Jags and Texans not too long ago. They play a tough division. I mean, the Colts are going to be good too. I mean, I have the Titans in last place in the division, and you know what? Unfortunately, I can't see them moving up from there.
They're going to be stuck, but, I think Brian Callahan is going to make them a competitive football team, a much better football team than they were last year, because last year the Tennessee Titans were a team that was just, they were instructed to give the ball to Derrick Henry. Oh, you got to give the ball to Derrick Henry 10 times a game.
Yeah, but now you don't have that luxury anymore, so you're starting from scratch with Tony Pollard, and you also have what's his name? Their backup running back.
Are you talking about Treylon Burks?
Not Treylon Burks. Their backup running back. It's going to kill me. I know who he is. Their backup running back. It's going to. What's his name? But. Anyway, I also wanted to give a report while I'm looking up the guy's name. I do want to mention Billy Beane passed away.
I was looking up Billy Beane. It's not the Oakland A's Billy Beane.
Yeah, no, it's a different Billy Beane. He was a league executive and one of the MLB's first openly gay players, and he had leukemia in December, and he passed away at the age of 60.
Oh, that's too bad. I made me think it was the Oakland A's Billy Beane that defined, Moneyball.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Backup. So the Titans backup running back, I'm looking at their depth chart right now. It was Tyjae Spears. That's what his name was, Tyjae Spears. He's actually proven to be really good. Tyjae Spears is a guy who can catch passes out of the backfield. He's a guy that can run really fast. I mean, we know Derrick Henry's like this ground and pound tough runner who could just bulldoze through you, but Tyjae Spears is the opposite of that. So you're having two backs in Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears who can do everything for you.
Yeah, Spears is a good 2B for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, like I said before, Tennessee, I feel bad. They're not going to be good because the division they're in is hard, but I mean, maybe they win 7 or 8 games. If they win 7 or 8 games, I mean, that's considered a success, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It is going to be a success. It might be a success. You might be right about that. But, now by looking at it, the Tennessee Titans are just not there yet. They're not Houston. They're not Jacksonville with.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, and this was the team that was a Cinderella story in 2019 when they beat the Ravens, who were a 1 seed, and they played the Chiefs in the AFC title game, and they almost made the Super Bowl. I mean, it's been a long 5 years. I'll put it that way.
It has been a long 5 years for the for the Tennessee Titans, but I just don't think they're ready yet. I think Houston's probably going to be ready to be a true Super Bowl contender.
Oh yeah, no, I've hyped up this team a lot in the last few shows that we've done, and I believe in them because you don't have a rookie quarterback come in, be an MVP consideration, win a playoff game against a tough defense, and then take the Ravens to the brink. It doesn't happen like that.
No, it doesn't. It's one of those, rare instances that it does happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, too, the CJ Stroud, also the Texans got better. They out of their receiving core, they got better running game. The defense got better. And sometimes when you have a young team and with nothing to lose and everything to gain, you play stress-free.
And you do play stress-free for that, just because. Yeah. And then you also talk about and you also talk about trying to think of another team that for the next show, since we're about to conclude here, for our next show here, we're gonna make our week 1 picks during the last week of the NFL preseason, because you better be ready for what is going to be the biggest lock in week 1, the biggest surprise in week 1 about who you think who could potentially face an upset.
Okay.
Because that's going to be week 1 for you.
I cannot wait for the NFL season. I'm due for football. I'm due.
Yeah, but you also know my Madden League next year, I'm extending the regular season to 18 games beginning next year.
I'm well aware of this. And also, we can't rule out also college football is returning in late August. We're in August. We're a few weeks away from college football, the new college football with the realignment. So that's going to be exciting. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be fun.
Oh, we also have a developing story here. The Patriots are aggressively pursuing Brandon Ayuk and trying to extend him based on what I just got just now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a developing story. So the Patriots, like I said, they were pursuing Brandon Ayuk. I had a feeling that was going to be the case, and look at that. So we can talk about this a little bit more. Brandon Ayuk, where would he fit in the Patriots offense? Just out of curiosity, in your opinion.
Probably number 1 receiver for Drake May. I think Rob Mayo is going to be very excited about that.
Now, like I said before, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with the Patriots. And like I said, it might take a first-round draft pick. It might take a first- and second-round draft pick to get Brandon Ayuk because he is one of the most underrated receivers in the league, and the top receiver for the 49ers. And
you also have to also want to break to you that Rob Mayo is expecting all 4 rookie quarterbacks to be playing in preseason. So
wow.
Including Bailey Zappi. I feel like my cut candidate for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Bailey Zappi. I think he's the odd man out.
No Zappi mania?
I mean, Joe Milton has looked pretty good, but if the Patriots want to put Joe Milton on the practice squad,
Right.
Then I could see Zappy being a third stringer behind Jacoby Brissett.
All right, I get that, but I think Zappy Mania has kind of died down. I get it. I mean, the whole
Bailey.
Zappy Mania should not have been a thing. I'm sorry, that should not have been a thing.
No, people got hyped up for Bailey Zappi for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, Matt, we'll end the show now and have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.